Rotarians and Guests, welcome to the March 10th meeting of the Rotary Club of York. Our members are dedicated to service above self and Rotary's four-way test. Leading us today in our opening song and pledge is Deb Harrison, and providing our invocation is past President Gordon Fryrick. Deb.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans wide with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning. Thank you, Deb. The subject of today's speaker is truth. Truth is at the very core of Rotary. The first question in the four-way test, is it the truth? The Hebrew word for truth is emet. The word consists of the first, a middle, and the last letters of the Hebrew alphabet. Sages interpret that to mean that truth is all-encompassing. It is thought that emet, truth, is the root of what we say following a prayer, amen or amen, meaning surely, verily, truth. Truth in today's world is a noble and often elusive objective, and is an ancient concept. The word truth appears often in the Bible, the idea of truth as a divine value. Psalm 119, all your words are true, all your righteous laws are eternal. Psalm 145, the Lord is near to all who call upon him, to all who call on him in truth. Let truth be our guide. Amen. Amen.
Thank you, Deb and Gordon. Announcements for today. Your generous donations for the Texas winter emergency should be made by tomorrow, please, so the funds can be put to use immediately. You can use the Rotary Club website to make a credit card donation or contact Bert directly to be invoiced. Applications are currently being accepted for merit scholarships, the Cayley Rising Musician, and the Smith Agricultural. The deadline is the end of this month. Our board, Rotary Club board, meets tomorrow at 8 a.m. Service Above Self Committee will meet on Monday at 10 a.m. Your nominations for the award are welcome. Please send those to President-elect Jackie Summers. Your program suggestions for July through December of this year are welcome. Please send those ideas to past President Mike Summers. The district conference will be held virtually this year from April 30th to May 2nd, including 3 districts, 5,000 Rotarians, and 3 keynote speakers. For more details, you can check out the district website. Our Literacy Committee's book drive is in full swing, and it will benefit the Child Development Center at First Church of the Brethren and the Salvation Army. Your support is needed to reach our goal of $2,000 by the end of this month. Donations are welcome via the website or sending a check to the office. A list of books is also available if you prefer to order online and have them shipped directly to the Salvation Army. Check with Deb Harrison for any questions. And here is a literacy video to illustrate the message.
Story time with the Literacy Committee. This week's books: The Berenstain Bears and Too Much Time Home.
Sorry, guys, I'm just trying to make it a little bit louder.
Here we go. then.
Story time with the Literacy Committee. This week's books: The Berenstain Bears and Too Much Time Home. Horton Hears the Who. The Very Hungry Coronavirus.
The Rotary Club Literacy Committee Book Drive is back. Our goal is to raise $2,000 for the Child Development Center at the First Church of the Brethren and the Salvation Army. Your donations will help provide reading materials for more than 200 local children. You can help by visiting yorkrotary.org, clicking on the Charitable Donations button, designating York Rotary Community Project Fund, and entering Book Drive in the comments.
Or if you prefer, you can shop easily online using our Amazon wish list.
Thanks for coming to Storytime. Good night, then.
Adorable. Thanks to the Literacy Committee for that great drive and putting a smile on everyone's face on this sunny day. Next up, Diane Marino will join us for a Student Education Fund announcement.
Hi, everyone. I wanted to make sure everyone knew that we are now accepting applications for the non-traditional scholarship. This is the Rotary Club non-traditional scholarship. Very excited this year. We have over $7,000 available to award. So we are looking forward to getting a lot of applications and being able to help these students. For those of you who are not aware, the non-traditional student is that student who did not go on to school right after they graduated high school. They would be either currently enrolled or going to be enrolled at least part-time at a post-secondary accredited school. This could be your next door neighbor who lost their job during the pandemic and needs to go back to school for training. This could be a young lady who was unable to graduate high school, but worked to get her GED and is now ready to move on to further her career by getting more education. Or it could just be someone who thought, okay, you know what, I want to move up in the company and I know I need more education, so I'm going back to school. If any of these people, if you know anybody in this category of the non-traditional student, please contact Renee, have them contact Renee or go on our website to download the application. The deadline is April 30th. And if they have any questions, they can always reach out to Renee. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Diane. Well, today is certainly a slice of the very important work that our committees are doing. They are the fuel for our community impact. And one of those that is fairly new is our HR committee. So I'd like to invite Wilda Alessi for an HR announcement.
Thank you, President Ann, and good afternoon, fellow Rotarians. On behalf of the HR committee, the interview team, and the board of directors, I'm honored to announce that the new executive director has been hired. Lynn Morrison will officially start on Monday, March 15th, in preparation for Bert's retirement on March 31st. During that time, Lynn and Bert will work together on transitioning all of the knowledge that makes our club run. Well, maybe not all of it, but most of it. And Lynn will be formally introduced to the club at our April 7th meeting, so make sure to mark that on your calendars. As Lynn gets started, please extend to her a warm Rotary welcome. I know she's looking forward to meeting all of you. And a huge thank you to the interview team, Brian Tate for being our point person, and Ben Alott from Alternative HR for all of their hard work in this process. Thanks, Ann.
Thank you, Wilda. Well, Rotarians, the Rotary International theme for this year is Rotary Opens Opportunities. And we are fortunate to have really two historic opportunities this year to celebrate Bert's legacy of service to our club. And we're also fortunate that our HR committee, under the direction of Wilda and all the others that this year embraced this significant opportunity and / heavy lift to choose from amazing candidates, the person who will become the new leader of our club's future. Today is certainly a historic day. Next up, for York City Little League, we have an announcement from Phil Woods. Phil.
Good afternoon, everyone. As you can see in the slide, past president Patty was making his best attempt at pitching a baseball versus bowling, as they do in cricket. Thank you so much to the fundraising committee of the Rotary Club of York. As you can see in the background, I've tried to capture the love for community banner that's presented at the event each year. As a recipient of some of the funds from that event, again, representing the board of directors, our players, our coaches, our volunteers, we can't thank you enough for your continued support. Just wanted to go through a couple things and highlight some of the things that we're currently doing, what we anticipate doing in the future. But first, I wanted to go back to the 2019 Rotary International theme that Rotary connects the world. I found a little bit of a blog entry from the Rotary website that said, Rotary is built on connections. Rotary International provides a way to connect our communities, to network professionally, and to build strong and lasting relationships. And as I thought about that, I looked directly to the Little League International mission statement, which says Little League believes in the power of youth baseball and softball to teach life lessons that build stronger individuals and communities. So a lot of parallel thought and mission there, which I think is pretty neat. I wanted to mention that the York City Little League is an urban initiative program. We're one of about 200 programs across 85 cities in the United States. So we're underneath the Little League umbrella, which another stat, Little League baseball and softball now finds itself internationally in over 80 countries. So again, connecting the world, Little League baseball has certainly done that. More locally in our community, we have in District 14 Little League baseball, we are one of 16 leagues. Our league specifically this year is entering the 18th season. I've been a volunteer with the program now 13 years. This is my 5th year as the president of the board of directors for the league. And this year, last year, I don't want to talk about last year too much. Unfortunately, we had to consolidate our efforts with concern for COVID and the safety of our participants. So this year we're ramped back up, excited for a new season. We have 176 participants registered for this year. That's going to be kids age 4 through 15, both boys and girls. We do have 2 softball teams this year at the 10U and 12U level. And of course, our lower divisions are co-ed. So we have a lot more girls participating from ages 4 through 8, really. This year at Rotary Fields at Odeon Park, where I found myself now, we will host games as well as at Rotary Fields at Allen Park. We just had a scheduling meeting, and I calculated the total for all of those games, and we will host nearly 100 games at York City Little League. Over 70 of those games will be at Rotary Fields at Allen Park and Odeon Park. So again, as we receive these funds from the Rotary Club of York, especially with our operations being lower participation last year, we took that opportunity to make some capital improvements to our facilities. This year, we're focusing on adding protection on top of the fences for the safety of our players. We're adding backstop padding to preserve some of the mesh that is behind the catcher's box and the batter's box. We're also upgrading and buying new catcher's equipment that will provide our kids. So we're focused a lot on some of the safety things that we can improve on at our fields. One last thing that I wanted to mention, I'll try to be efficient and make this a 1-2-3 inning. I did want to read the Little League pledge. I always try to take the opportunity to read the pledge when I'm in front of our club. And the pledge that is recited by the players before every game goes like this. And for those coaches in our Rotary Club who are familiar or past players, certainly recite it with me. I trust in God. I love my country and will respect its laws. I will play fair and strive to win, but win or lose, I will always do my best. So again, thank you to the Rotary Club of York for your generosity, your continued support. And opening day this year is scheduled for April 10th at Rotary Fields at Allen Park. We do have the Rotary Club Little League Committee coming out prior to that on March 26th. So if you have any questions or would like to volunteer in that effort, feel free to call Al or contact Al Sykes. He'll give you more information on that. But again, thank you. Spring is coming and baseball season is upon us, and we're excited to get those kids out on our fields again. Thank you.
Thanks, Phil. Thanks to you and your committee for the excellent work. I'm sure the kids are just as excited to get out and play together and have a great time this season. So I hope the sun is shining this brightly for opening day next month. Next up are our Biz Spotlight, and that is on Springwood Hospitality. Last December, Springwood received a national award from Hilton for development excellence. The Focused Service Brands Developer of the Year, must have been a big plaque, Dave, was given to only one honoree in North America. The Hilton team was impressed with Springwood's development process of their True property in Hershey. For that project, Springwood voluntarily met with community groups to help the True Hotel in Hershey better blend with the neighborhood. These meetings changed the proposed hotel's exterior colors, resulting in the only chocolate True in the entire globe. For a Lancaster developer, Springwood also opened the Wilbur Lidditz, a Tapestry by Hilton hotel. Hilton honored this hotel in December as its Tapestry by Hilton New Build of the Year for North America. The pandemic is impacting markets and hotel types differently. Suburban extended stay hotels are the industry's COVID heroes. The full-size fridge, dishwasher, and dining area and guest rooms make them the perfect choice for guests who are socially distancing. Half of their extended stay hotels that have been open for more than a year posted better revenue this February than they did last February of 2020. In markets with business demand driven by the logistics industry, because we're all getting things delivered, their occupancy is good. The York hotel market has been hit fairly hard, but is faring better than some. Markets with tourist attractions as their primary demand generators, such as Lancaster and Hershey, have been devastated. Their attractions are closed, so nobody's visiting. Full service hotels, especially in major port of entry markets, have also been hit hard. Their convention business has evaporated and international travel has nearly disappeared. The most helpful program for the hotel industry during the pandemic has been the Federal Payroll Protection Program. It's been clear and well administered. Springwood fully participated in both PPP rounds. It's been a lifeline for tens of thousands of hospitality businesses during the pandemic. Thank you to Rotarian Dave Hogue for this information. Dave has been a member since 1998. Next up, we have our poll, and this is a very important one. You're looking at a picture of our hybrid meeting format at the Country Club of York. This poll will gauge your interest in returning to in-person meetings at the Country Club. As the news regarding COVID-19 continues to improve nationally and locally, and as vaccinations increase and are distributed, the Rotary Club of York board is considering a return to our hybrid model of weekly meetings. We would still offer virtual Zoom, but we would be also offering in-person meeting at the Country Club. To help us in our planning, your feedback is critical. Please answer the following question, assuming that we would return to the Country Club, hopefully next month. A, I plan to return to attending our meetings in person at the Country Club. The middle one, I plan to at least occasionally attend clubs in person at the Country Club. And the last one, I will not be returning to in-person attendance for the foreseeable future.
And I'm just going to jump in here. It looks like we have about 72% voted. We'll wait a few more seconds to get more votes in.
Thank you, Ben.
All right, we're still looking for about 20 more votes. If you're there and willing to vote on this one, this is a good one to get feedback on. We have about 85% of votes in. We're looking for maybe 10 more. All right, we're going to close it up here in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And you should see those results on your screen there.
Oh, fairly split almost in those 35% attending regularly, 39% occasionally, and 27% not for the foreseeable future. Well, thank you all for participating in that poll. That's very good information, and it is on our agenda for our Rotary Board meeting tomorrow morning. Appreciate that. Next up to introduce our program is Chris Toff.
Thank you very much, President Dan. Before I introduce our speaker, and this is good that we're not in a room where I can get a glare that I'm going off of the agenda. I just want to remind everybody that this weekend we are 6 months out from the Love for Community event. So you can start saving your money now, because I know that there's going to be a live auction of some sort, and you're going to be harassed about giving more this coming year than we did last year. So I'm just giving you the 6-month warning. I'll be back again at some point to give you another warning in advance, but you got 6 whole months to get that in order. So to get back to our speaker for today, 2020 was a very interesting year, to say the least. During that year, as you were working from home or working with a full complement of PPP on, you may have learned some very interesting things while scrolling through your social media platforms or looking at quote unquote news websites. Things like COVID-19 has not killed anyone. COVID-19 symptoms are actually the effect of 5G communications technology. Dominion, the maker of voting machines, is really a Venezuelan company that was developed in order to help Hugo Chavez steal elections. And Pope Francis shocked the world by endorsing Donald Trump for president, or that a Colorado pot shop was accepting food stamps for marijuana. After digging a little deeper, we found out that they are not. It was started in Toronto to help blind people vote. He didn't, and they do not. Our speaker today, Aimee Rinehart, is the Deputy Director of First Draft News in the US. First Draft News has a mission to protect communities from harmful misinformation. How do they do this? They do this by training societies and a whole lot of journalists, including those from our parent company, our Fox 43 parent company, Tegna, how to sift through what is probably the most massive and polluted available information pool that has ever existed. And that pool continues to grow. Aimee led the US 2020 election work of First Draft, which included training journalists, researchers, community groups to find, verify, and respond to mis and disinformation online. First Draft also had a research team sending signals to these same groups to equip them with the news and events to anticipate. The team is now focused on vaccine mis and disinformation, which is important work at a time where there is a need for factual education on something that impacts us all in some way, shape, or form. Not to take up too much of Aimee's time, as I am positive you would much rather hear from her than me, I would like to clear up a few things in advance. I was not born on Krypton. I am not a Yankees fan, and I do not have a trusty horse named Trigger. With all that put to bed, I give you Aimee Rinehart. Aimee, take it away.
Hi, it's nice to be here with everyone. Thank you for having me. I have a soft spot for the Rotary Club. My husband was brought over from the former Soviet Union in 1993 because of a Rotary Club scholarship. So it's definitely affected my family directly, and I thank you for that. He went to Ohio, so I assume it was the Ohio Rotary Club. But anyway, next door neighbors at any rate. I'm going to share my screen and present on agreeing on facts in the age of polarization. And I'll go slowly. I've had some caffeine and I do live in New York, so I tend to talk quickly. So please raise your hand. I won't be able to necessarily see it, but I'll expect somebody, maybe Ben, can flag if you have a question, and we'll just take it from here. So I am the Deputy Director of First Draft in New York. We work to empower people with the knowledge and understanding of the tools to build resilience against harmful, false, and misleading information. We started in 2015 when we thought copyright infringement might be the biggest thing we'll have to tackle. This was really the volume and the speed at which false information is shared is unprecedented. The fact that we are all publishers through this cell phone is kind of scary and explains a lot of why we see things and trends and rumors circulate so quickly, especially when 2020 was unprecedented for so many reasons. But when there were remember back a year ago, we didn't have quite all the information we needed for the pandemic. So at the beginning, it was like, please wear gloves, don't wear masks, those aren't necessary. And then a month later, it was like, well, please wear masks. Actually, turns out gloves aren't that necessary. So whenever there's a gap of information, people will fill it in with problematic content and ideas of their own. And there was a lot of like, stay safe messaging that was sent directly through email chains, through sort of like the late 90s, and through SMS groups and WhatsApp groups, things like that. But we'll get into some of that. So just looking at disinformation, it's a very popular word at this point, but there are three types of information disorder that First Draft talks about. One is misinformation. That is, somebody got something wrong, they didn't mean to, but now that information is out there. That can be a news organization. They might have just gotten the story wrong, but a reputable news organization always has a correction and notes that prominently. Then we have disinformation, and that is information that is intentionally designed to be shared and with false information. So we see a lot of that. Then there's also malinformation, which is genuine content that is shared to cause mischief, like the WikiLeaks, for example, that newsrooms covered the information that was leaked, but not so intensely the reason why it was leaked and who was the person behind it. So until those things catch up, malinformation can really be disruptive to what the public knows. So one of the ways that First Draft is trying to help in this is in 2017, we started a collaborative election project, which was we brought 35 newsrooms in France to agree to drop the competition, at least for 8 weeks, and review information online that could be helpful to voters in the election. And so we saw France as pivotal to the region. Marine Le Pen was surging in the polls. She promised if she was elected that she would leave the European Union. And this was, about 6 months after the first Brexit vote. So it looked like Europe was going to swing radically, or had the potential to swing radically. And so we identified that as a critical country for us to operate in. And we sent out a lot of good information, I think, clarifying information for the public so that the public can make the best decision for themselves at the polls. And so we've iterated that throughout the world. I led the Brazilian election project in 2018. That was a lot of fun and a wild ride. One thing that is universal is there are so many common falsehoods around elections. Some of them are often incorporating, like, you can vote on Wednesday when actually everybody should be voting on Tuesday or whatever day that country determines. Some people are also, some people list their work as satire, and we'll get into that in a few slides later. But it's very easy to cling to the idea of like, we're just joking around here rather than actually misinforming people. So these are the groups that we work with, news organizations, universities, Tegna's right up in the top middle. And we partnered with them and we're lucky enough to train their verified team from, I believe, about 68 stations across the US. And so we're really proud of that work to be able to have each one teach one. So we have people at Tegna stations who went off and trained people in their newsroom. So that's the way we really get our work out there and to have the impact we hope to see in newsrooms. And what we want to see in newsrooms is less amplification of rumors and more truth-telling up front so that the public is less confused. So there's 4 areas of training that we work on at First Draft. One is just the basic understanding of information disorder, why we share it and why we're vulnerable. We also have a research team that does social listening. So finding and tracking conversations online and doing this in anticipation of the news cycle. So for instance, this past summer, we were researching reopen groups and came upon the keyword excessive quarantine. And as soon as we popped that keyword into some of our social listening tools, out popped about 250 groups across the US that were wanting to, that felt the quarantine measures were excessive and they wanted it to be reopened. So it was fascinating to be able to track that and to give newsrooms a heads up that I think it was like around July 20th, which would have been around a Saturday, like the 3rd or 4th Saturday in July, they were going to have a big rally nationwide for that. So it's just great to be able to tip off newsrooms in advance so that we're not constantly playing catch up with things that we can see very easily online. The January 6th riot at the Capitol, that was anticipated if you were reading things online. So our team wasn't shocked by it, but you never know to the extent of what someone's promises and threats online, if they will actually materialize in person until those things happen. We also work on verification, which is tools and techniques to verify content online. It's using the same type of traditional journalism questions: who, what, when, where, why, and how, and using digital tools to answer those and to interrogate content in the same way that you would someone in person. And then responsible reporting, really working with newsrooms and community groups on how to frame some of these online narratives to lead with the truth instead of restating the lie, and really knowing when something has reached a critical point to report on it, or to hold back and wait and see if it would be better to report on this later. I'll just pause to see if anybody has a question so far. I'll let Chris answer the question about the response from the Verify team. I think it's been good, but Chris might have more insight with that. And Austin asked, what legal responsibility do you have for what you hear while social listening? Do you mean, Austin, like, are we allowed to listen, or how would we use the information that we get?
I'm saying, what legal responsibility you have with the information you get? Do you have to report anywhere?
There is no legal responsibility. I think there's a moral and an ethical responsibility. If we saw online that someone was threatening to take a gun into a house of worship, we would absolutely alert the authorities to that. We would not sit on that information. Anybody who's threatening a life or lives, we would rise up to the highest of authorities to try and help in that situation. Luckily, we haven't had that situation happen. We came very close on Gab in 2018 with the Christchurch shooter. Our team found that the day of, but because of the time difference, we were too late to do anything. So that's the kind of stuff we are looking for in anticipation. But all of the stuff is the things that we use are called basically open source. So CrowdTangle is owned by Facebook, but that's a social listening tool that we can use. It's become less effective as Facebook has tightened somewhat their rules around who is allowed to have a group and what phrases can be used in that group. Stop the Steal, for example, that phrase was blocked from Facebook, and so too were the groups that were using that in their name.
And Aimee, to go to the question of how Verify has been accepted by the viewing public, I think that for our company as a whole, it's been very, very well received by people. I still think that we do run into a lot of things. When I look at comments we get on our Facebook page about things and stuff along those lines, it goes back to what Aimee's talking about here, is just agreeing on facts. Because even after doing some of the digging and the legwork, and either it's saying that something is true or false, we still get a good number of people that will say to us, that's because you didn't do X, Y, and Z, which are things that we have already proven to be false. So there's still some of that to overcome, but I think overall, generally, it's been very well received.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. I mean, Ellen Crook still takes our calls, so we're doing well. So understanding the landscape of information disorder. So here, just from misleading narratives to conspiracy theories, the complexity and the scale of information pollution in today's digital and divided world presents remarkable challenges for us. Just the agreeing on the truth is not enough. And as I mentioned before, we are all publishers We all have the ability to publish from the palm of our hand. I don't think that's doing us a lot of favors in terms of really understanding a nuanced debate on any topic. And it's not just in the US, lest you think we're alone. Here are examples from all over the world, from India and Ecuador and the Philippines, Madagascar, and Yemen, about how in particular, information around elections has been weaponized and really misinforms people. And the question we get asked a lot is like, we have to agree on facts and facts are important. And I like facts. I like a shared set of like, yes, we can agree that when there's a stoplight and it's red, I will stop. We all have to have that level of trust because once that's broken down, it's going to be hard to drive anywhere. But our relationship to information is not intellectual. It's not something that we can fact to death. It's emotional. And until newsrooms, until community groups can tap into that emotional appeal, we will be a long way off from people agreeing on facts. And part of that is not to say if somebody believes that the earth is flat, it is not to agree with that person, like, of course the earth is flat. I just want to talk to you a little bit. But it is about like, how did they come to believe that? What's their source material? What are their underlying fears? Because if you're a journalist in a newsroom, if you look into that fear, it might be economic insecurity, in which case has your newsroom done enough to report on the economic security in your area? So those are some of the questions we hope journalists ask, but also when you are encountering people on your Facebook feed, for example, rather than shutting them down, are you engaging with them? Are you identifying the emotion behind it? And are you able to see like what is driving that? You know, maybe that person just lost 2 family members to COVID. And so now they don't trust, you know, they felt like the government didn't protect them. They felt like the CDC didn't protect them. So now they're shutting off to facts. So it might just be worth identifying with that emotional component that's driving it and less so the facts about it, because believe me, and I'm sure many of you have tried to fact a family member or two, and it just, it goes nowhere fast and is really frustrating for both sides. So this article from Neiman Lab looks at the neuroscience of fake news, and the illustration about mainstream news and your uncle's memes on Facebook. Basically, it's an illustration of how this information lights us up. And this is when you are scrolling through your own news feed, be very aware of something and be suspicious of something that moves you between the polarity of wanting to laugh out loud and wanting to really scream and be angry, because that love and hate polarity is what the algorithms are designed to do. It's designed to put you into action, for you to feel something. You know, it's not a very smart way to review news feeds or information that you're taking in. And it really does play to our base needs. This illustration I think is kind of funny because it does, again, when you are moving between those love and hate, you'll be very, I think you'll be very surprised at how much of that is something you want to comment on or share and extend to your network. One of the things that I touched on just previously was the feeling of powerlessness and vulnerability. Those things can make us more susceptible. When we have had people who had believed deeply in the QAnon conspiracy theory and somehow managed to get out of it, many of them talked about losing jobs, losing family members, wanting answers that they felt the government and the newsrooms were not furnishing for them. And so many times they said QAnon explained everything. It explained everything I couldn't see, but was feeling. And so these things make us more feeling powerless and vulnerable. And so we will be open to misinformation. It is very similar to being taken in by a cult, that people who gravitate toward cult-like adherence often feel like this is a place that understands me. And most of us are online, sometimes looking for that understanding. And a place like QAnon or pages and groups like QAnon are more than happy to accept new people. So I mentioned before mis and disinformation. Misinformation is when people share false information but don't realize that it's false or misleading. Sometimes they do it out of fear. Sometimes they do it to protect people, and as a display of their identity, like this is what I believe in, like the QAnon conspiracy theory. There's also disinformation when people intentionally create false or misleading information. Sometimes it's to make money. Sometimes it's for political influence or to set an agenda. Sometimes it's just to cause mischief or real world harm. So at First Draft, we do not say the word fake news or the phrase fake news. Part of it is because what's being referred to as fake news isn't news at all. Instead, it's a meme or a video, a website or a podcast that isn't news. It's just taking maybe a slice of the news and really contorting it into something else. It's also too binary. Most content is not real or fake. It sort of is somewhere in the middle. And it also targets the media, and it's used by politicians and people to discredit journalists and the media. So we have stopped using it entirely. We refer to what we're seeing online as information disorder, and we will get more granular into what misinformation and disinformation looks like with our 7 types of mis and disinformation. And so we do get into this granularity so that people have something to reference. So it's not just fake news. It's like, well, there's satire, which a lot of far-right actors claim and cling to as a reason for why they shared what they shared. Or imposter content, genuine sources are impersonated. We see a lot of logos being lifted from genuine news sites and being used to add credibility to a meme that is false. So here's an example of satire. I think we've all seen The Onion. But don't count on everyone in your newsfeed to know what The Onion is. And sometimes when satire is shared out of context, meaning you just share a link and you expect the person on the other side who is maybe half paying attention to their smartphone to get it, you run the risk of them misunderstanding. So it's important if you do share a piece of satire that you explain, hey, I thought this was funny. It's from The Onion. I thought, I thought you would find it funny too. Really giving context to everything you share is incredibly helpful. We see a lot of false context. For example, this image circulated online, and it was saying that it was from Black Lives Matter protests, but it actually was from Philadelphia in 2016. A lot of the stuff gets repurposed, but it fits in with some people's narrative of like, oh my gosh, everything is burning down, the world is on fire, look what I just found. And this stuff goes viral during news events, and that's part of what our team researches to make sure that when someone claims that this is associated with Black Lives Matter, that we can geolocate this and identify who was the photographer. We also see a lot of manipulated content. Be very wary of images you see online with signs. For example, the real sign here is on the left, the original one. And it's clear that the people holding the signs are Muslim. On the right, the signs have been photoshopped or manipulated, and they have anti-white messaging on it. And that is basically to associate Muslims with being anti-white and to stir up Islamophobia. So be very cautious of signs that you see on your social posts because they are often overwritten. So characteristics of disinformation, we see lots of rumors circulate in local groups and online spaces. If you're curious, check out some of the groups that are associated in York, Pennsylvania to see what what people are saying, or even if you use an app like Nextdoor, there's a lot of problematic content on there. There's a lot of, on my Nextdoor, which is rooted to my zip code, I see a lot of guessing as to who caused what problem in the neighborhood. And that's just rife for problematic information. We also see a lot of problems with closed messaging apps. For one, it's difficult to get in there as a journalist, especially if something is closed. The encryption adds another level of problems for law enforcement. So law enforcement can't, it used to be only law enforcement had encrypted messaging or ways to communicate. Now it's the general public. So that is a problem. Visual and memes are compelling vehicles for misinformation. We have very lazy brains. And if we see something funny, it's an image, we share it quickly without really thinking to add context or to understand it beyond what we see. And people have asked me a lot, especially in the past year, of like, what news story has somebody believed in whole that has really misinformed them? And it's like, well, I would say that misinformation has really become sophisticated in the past 4 years, in that it doesn't have to be effective. Misinformation doesn't have to get people to believe something wholesale. All it does is have to sort of shake at our core understanding and belief system of like, can you really trust it? Can you trust it? And the big lie that went around the election, where Donald Trump said, you know, I won fair and square, it was stolen from me, and then other people repeated that. It wears at people to where even I worked in this space for the past 5 years now. I feel like I have a level of sophistication and understanding. Even my sense of like, was it a fair election? It's not entirely solid. And that is why misinformation can be so effective, because it just has to have that kernel of truth, or at least sow a seed of doubt that really destabilizes you to the point where you're like, you're not sure if you can believe anything that is presented to you now. You become very cynical. And that is probably the biggest boon from the 2016 election, where we had it's been proven that we have had outside actors come in and foment division. And from that as a starting point, it has exploded to where we don't need outside influence anymore to have that division. It's within, and we can't even agree on like our favorite flavor of ice cream. It's really, it's been difficult, especially as somebody who works in the media. Then there's also, for disinformation, there's scammers who capitalize on misinformation, selling things, whether it's vitamins or T-shirts or setting a GoFundMe page. After a big event, it is not uncommon to see GoFundMe pages for people who were never at the site, but people want to fundraise around it. So really, all of those things, whenever you give money online, make sure it's to who you think it's going to support. Characteristics of disinformation. Again, that's disinformation is information designed on purpose to be problematic. Bad actors want misinformation to move across platforms. So once something goes from Facebook into Twitter, or Twitter into Instagram, or Instagram into TikTok, the bad actors have won. They love this stuff where their information floats and then suddenly it's untethered. You're not sure where it came from, but it's funny, or you really are angry, or it angers you. And it's successful by making its way through the information ecosystem. Misinformation and hate speech are increasingly blurring. We see this a lot. We saw it through the 2020 election, Black and Latinx communities being in particular targeted with problematic content. And now the stakes are even higher around vaccine misinformation, because those communities are affected by coronavirus much more deeply. And there's also the problem with access to the vaccine. So misinformation is now not just around an election, but it truly is life and death. And the hate speech is done with intention to mislead. We also see stuff like keyword squatting. That's a known technique of bad actors. I don't know if anybody saw the Burger King, like women belong in the kitchen, the Burger King ad that they've done. I'm not saying that is mis or disinformation. It's an ad campaign. There's always a little bit of problematic content in ad campaigns anyway, but people are talking about it. People aren't talking great about it, but I think Burger King settled on whatever people are talking about is fine with us so long as they're talking about Burger King. So again, Burger King became a keyword, and it's not that they necessarily keyword squatted where they took over a hashtag and rendered it meaningless, but it certainly is a technique that marketing people use, and most of online activity is driven through marketing techniques. Imposter content is very effective, as I mentioned earlier. Attribution is really hard. Who took this piece of content that went from Twitter to Facebook into Instagram? We're not sure most of the time. In fact, when we fill out the who, what, when, where, why, and how of an image or a video, so oftentimes we can fill out most of it except for who took it. We have no idea. We have no idea who to credit, who to ask for more information from. So it's really hard to find the people who originated the image. So this is a word cloud looking at things through what are the goals? The goals are in orange. The tactics are in that brownish purpley color. And the platforms, WeChat, Pinterest, BitChute, YouTube. These are the things, these are the places where a lot of misinformation goes. But again, the goals of bad actors: confusion, amplifying of a narrative, creating uncertainty to where you can't trust anything. The tactics, doing it through memes, adding just enough of the truth to get people to believe it, targeting local groups to get people to amplify this information, using hashtags or taking over a hashtag is another tactic of bad actors. And here, what we're seeing too is a proliferation of messaging apps. On the left is Telegram, and that's a peer-to-peer messaging app. This post is from Iran, where they were saying that the CDC reported that more than 3,000 people are paralyzed from taking the vaccine. On the right is a WhatsApp message where people were sharing that one remedy for to eradicate COVID-19 is drinking hot tea with lime. So these things are really pernicious because unlike a Facebook feed where maybe you scroll past some people's posts and certainly maybe promoted posts, on your peer-to-peer, you're more likely to see every single post that drops into the app because you trust it, because you've opted into this. We also see targeted problematic content, targeting local community groups. So again, be very clear or be on the lookout for community groups, whether it's on Nextdoor or Facebook, that are amplifying problematic content. Some of it too, like the one in the middle of please don't open the door for anyone. Those are meant to be helpful, but they actually stoke people's tensions. And we also see a lot of hate speech and disinformation, as I mentioned. But this time it has real world consequences. I think the amount of attacks, physical attacks on Asian Americans has grown exponentially in the past year. And any Asian American, it doesn't matter if they're from Korea, that nuance doesn't matter. People are angry about the coronavirus, originating in China. So they are attacking people who look Chinese to them. We're also seeing it, as I said, this is a global issue. In Kazakhstan, coronavirus conspiracies are being embraced by celebrities. Oftentimes, celebrities are the biggest problem when it comes to vaccine hesitancy or rumors around coronavirus. If you haven't listened to the daily on the vaccine trust problem, it's really great. It shows or it illustrates, yes, developing the coronavirus vaccine was difficult, but getting people to trust that vaccine is going to be an even bigger problem because you can manufacture something in the lab, but you really can't build trust overnight, especially when sometimes the government rollouts on things have been not an easy path forward. And then we have the platforms. Don't feel like all of this is on you. The platforms have a really they are at the center of the problems that we have online. In 2016, Mark Zuckerberg said that Facebook had no impact on the election. Sheryl Sandberg went back in 2021 to say that the Capitol Hill riots were not organized on its platform. That is not true. The events have been fomented since the reopen groups of the summer. They have not done due diligence on moderating and monitoring their own platform. And we will see what's in store for them in the coming years, if they'll be regulated, if they will be broken up. Facebook owns WhatsApp and Instagram, and also CrowdTangle, which I mentioned earlier, is a tool that we use. So we'll see what's up for them. But they have a lot to answer for in terms of accountability. So a lot of this is not on the user. It really is on the platforms that allow the proliferation of problematic content, and also for bad actors to build audiences into the hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions, for years and years, and then finally remove them from the platform. So where there's information, there's the possibility of disinformation. Don't think that TikTok is all about dancing competitions. There's a lot of problematic content on TikTok, also on places like Instagram as well. And effective techniques that we believe slow down misinformation, individual post verification versus the evolution and movement of misleading and misrepresentative narratives. So what we are looking at is not trying to go after individual posts and trying to fact check them, but really going after the actors who have distributed it, to just say, this is a known bad actor who has distributed lots of anti-vax or anti-Semitic posts in the past, and this is their jam, and please ignore it. So really going after the actors who are producing this and not individual posts. Transparency, we think, helps to build trust. I think this is a great quote by Cory Doctorow. We're not living through a crisis about what is true. We're living through a crisis about how we know whether something is true. We believe in pre-bunking, looking through Google Trends, looking at what is available in your own market to see what is missing. Do people know where to go for coronavirus vaccines? And if you check out places like Google and YouTube, you'll likely get very different outputs for that, and debunking, trying to give people, the public, some awareness of what they're seeing and why, and how to respond to that information if they encounter it. We're looking at where high levels of demand for information about a specific topic are not adequately matched by a supply of credible information is where we get what we call a data deficit. So there hasn't been a lot of new information about the polio vaccine because it's been a proven and effective vaccine for 50 years. Bad actors know this, anti-vax people know this, so they fill content, new content about doubts around the polio vaccine. And the platforms, YouTube, Google, Facebook, they prioritize new content. And so because there's no new content from authoritative sources about the polio vaccine, what gets risen up and prioritized is the bad content. So that's how bad content winds up and prioritized on social platforms, and what we hope newsrooms will do to fill that gap. And some of the tools and resources we have a vaccine insights hub that is aimed for journalists and the public, basically anybody who really wants to understand what they're seeing around vaccines and why. And we also have a weekly newsletter, and I will share these links afterward in the chat if you like, so you can sign up for them. We have loads of guides and interactives in case you want to know more. And thank you. I'm going to stop my share.
Thank you, Aimee. Thanks for your important work. And we just have about 30 seconds. We have a lot of questions, but we do end at 1 o'clock. So has the entertainment value of news, Oprah, interview of Prince Harry and Meghan, helped to heighten issues like institutional racism or cloud facts and the truth?
That's really interesting. Oprah's been really interesting as a person because, and I think a lot of politicians have followed her lead in terms of introducing pathos into her work. And I feel like Bill Clinton introduced, like, if he was going to talk about something about the military, he had a military officer in the crowd and would point to them. And so I do think leaning on that emotional appeal is really powerful. And, you know, in many instances, if you saw the interview with Prince Harry and Meghan, you saw almost a repeat of history about his mother, at least how she describes her experience. And so it was a really powerful interview, and she is the queen of pathos. So you couldn't have gotten kind of a perfect, more perfect marriage of emotional appeal during that 2-hour interview.
Thank you, Aimee. We have a lot of questions in the chat. Maybe you can stick around as we're closing up the meeting. Yep. And you can reply to everyone. A lot of good questions for you. Great to know that your family was impacted by your husband in his involvement with Rotary. So Aimee, in appreciation for your visit with us today, your virtual visit, we are donating a book, The Little Engine That Could, by Waddy Piper, will be presented to the YMCA of York, their child care library. So we'll send you a little Rotary book plate that you can sign, and we'll put that on the inside of the book. Rotarians and Guests, next week, our club meeting will feature a virtual program by Rotarians Silas Chamberlain and President Commissioner Julie Wheeler about York County Broadband, the task force for countywide broadband connectivity. A reminder to turn your clocks ahead this weekend, as Saturday evening we'll walk into daylight savings on Sunday. And feel free to wear green next week, because next Wednesday is St. Patrick's Day. Our closing song today for your enjoyment is I Feel You by the Wild Hymns, featuring the talented Megan Hewitt and her husband, Jeff. Megan is Rotarian Tom Donnelly's daughter. Enjoy. Have a wonderful week, everyone. Take care.